Hey everybody, and welcome to episode number 3 of the Intentionally Positive Podcast.
It's already been 3 episodes.
3 episodes, Shane.
This is the third one of those.
Like number 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, yeah, actually, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
right,
you're right. Wow, 3 episodes. I can't believe we're still here. And we actually have people listening to this podcast. Anyway, today, Shane, I think our topic today is what? When I get angry?
Yeah, we're just going to talk about anger and how you deal with those kinds of emotions as someone who's trying to be positive, and maybe some ways that you can like practically start reversing maybe some of those emotional patterns that we kind of find ourselves in, those emotional habits. And why don't you start us off, man? So first of all, when do you find you get angry?
When I get angry,
yeah,
this is kind of an interesting topic for me because I don't think I live my life angry, but I definitely have trigger points. I definitely go from 0 to 10 in a matter of milliseconds. So this is going to be very good for me.
Ever.
Yeah. What was the question?
Yeah, so what are those trigger points?
Trigger points. Oh man, the trigger points could be anything, Shane. It could be somebody jerking out in front of me. It could be somebody not going at a traffic light because they're texting on their phone. It could be because I've told somebody something 10 times and they still are completely clueless on what I've told them. I mean, the list is just very long, Shane. It would take the entire podcast for me to go through my list.
Yeah. We're uncovering a lot about Brad this episode.
But I'm not an angry person.
Yeah. I know a lot of that's traffic.
A lot of that is traffic. A lot of that is also what I have found interesting is that it's also when I have people in the car. If I'm by myself, I'm pretty good at kind of self-maintaining and just taking a deep breath and not really getting upset. But if I have someone in the car with me, it's almost like I don't know what happens, but I get pissed off. I just get angry. And then I have to, go to a happy place, or I have to calm down, or I have to, justify my actions in some way or another. And I do that in a multitude of different ways. But, not many of you guys out there in podcast world or YouTube world really know much about me. But I'll share a little bit. I'm kind of a Disney-holic. More of a Disney World holic. Just been there so much. Just absolutely love the place. I just used to take 2 or 3 vacations a year to Orlando, Florida, to Disney World. Grew up going there, so there's a lot of nostalgia, a lot of memories, a lot of things that kind of just are just super awesome about going to Disney World. Now as an adult, it's a little different. But anyway, it's still a very fun place to go. And what I try to do when I get angry is I try to go to my happy place, right? So I try to think of those happy moments and those happy times that I have. And it's not just, Walt Disney World. It's also other places like the beach, or it may be a birthday party, or it may be, my daughter's birthday party, or whatever it may be, or some great time that I had somewhere. I just try to go to that happy place in my mind. And just tell myself that it's just not worth it, and then, when I go to my happy place, I find myself trying to plan out my next vacation, because there's certain things, at certain places that I like food, I don't know, buffets at Walt Disney World, buckets of fried chicken and cornbread. I don't know. There's just something about the cornbread and fried chicken at the Hoop-de-Doo Review. I just love it. Just can't get enough of it. And it's also all you care to eat and all you care to drink, wine and beer. So that's another big plus. So on the positive side, I try to put my mind there and think of all the positive things that had been and positive things that could be. So I try to start thinking along those lines, and like I said, usually that night or the next day I find myself planning a vacation. Not that I take a vacation immediately therefore after, but I start thinking of where am I going to go next. What about you, Shane?
Yeah. Like what makes me angry?
Yeah, sure. You asked me, so I'll ask you. Yeah,
Sure.
What makes you angry, and how do you deal with it?
I like to think I'm a person that doesn't get angry too much, and then like I started really thinking about it. I'm like, I do get angry, and the things that cause me to get angry, the patterns that I've kind of noticed are, there's lots of different things, but it's just when I feel like I am not in control of a particular situation or a person. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but like the first thing I thought about was like, being a parent. And one of the things that just drives me absolutely crazy is like when my kids won't go to sleep. I like a lot of parents in my situation. Again, I have 3 children, all of whom are under 4 at the present moment. They, I go to work. I have just a really mentally exhausting job. I have a second job that I teach, where I teach code, part time, and then I come home in the evenings, and I'm just so wore out. But it's important to be a good parent. So like, I spend time with my children, and then they just freak out and they want to play and they want to use their imaginations and run all over the place and ride daddy the horsey, and it's just like, it's fun, but it's like, man, I'm just so tired. So and I haven't had much time to kind of do like any of my stuff or to relax or decompress. So by the time like they're ready for bedtime, the time I'm ready for them to go to bed, they are just not. And like my son, for example, I mean, he will just cry and scream because he just wants like me and my wife to be laying down in bed with him before and it's just like, I get frustrated, right? And I get angry because I'm like, I don't know why you can't just like accept the fact that like at least I'm in the room with you, right? And you're still like crying and screaming. So like, he's not doing anything wrong, he's just being himself, but I feel like I can't do anything to make him sleep. And all I want is, 20 minutes to myself where I can just sit down on the couch and do nothing if I want to. So what I find is that like, I want to be in control of a schedule. I want everything to go according to that schedule because I feel like it makes me in control. And so when things disrupt that, I tend to feel, that emotional responsive anger tends to result. And so I've noticed this, a few weeks ago. And I mean, it wasn't just like trying to put the kids to bed, for example. It was also like, trying to make sure we leave to get to church on time. It was trying to, make sure I get to work exactly at 8, like all these things. And what I found is that like, I really analyzed it. I'm like, I can't do anything about a lot of these situations. I can't make my son sleep. I can't make the whole family just like be ready to go and like get to mass on time. Like all these things. So what I did, I just kind of accepted it, and I tried to look at those situations where I find that anger response happens and is triggered. I try to see it beforehand and change the situation before it even happens. So like, for example, my son, as long as I'm in the room, at least he'll kind of be quiet, and he'll just be laying in his bed trying to get to sleep. So I was like, I could use that time instead to work on my, kind of conditioning my subconscious mind and like ridding myself of these negative programs that have kind of formed in me. So I'll just sit there and I'll listen to an uplifting podcast or YouTube video. Sometimes I pray. Sometimes I do something fun, kind of like Brad was saying, like you shift your mind to things that make you happy. And one of the things I've really enjoyed doing that makes me, I guess, kind of feel in control, but just lifts my spirits is I've taken to this practice, I call it like life design, right? And so like I imagine just different aspects of my life, whether it's my personality, the relationship I have with my wife or my children, my financial situation, the house I live in, whatever. And I'll go through and in the most granular detail I could possibly come up with, I write out like in like the present tense, what does my house look like? What does it smell like inside? You know, like how high up on the wall is this particular picture? You know, what does the carpet feel like under my feet? You know, what does the view look like? You know, what does it look like at this time of day? You know, and on and on and on. And that tends to put me in a really positive mentality. So I found that the things that work is just taking a situation where you can predict, like you always kind of act the same way, and before you even get there, make a decision that you're going to do something else in that time. Just flip it around and make it more positive. So that's kind of what I do.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, I think another good thing is you kind of briefly hit on this, and this is definitely what I do is, I mean, when I find myself, and I'm sure all of you out there have had the same situation, especially those that have girlfriends, boyfriends, spouses, partners, whatever it may be, you're finding yourself getting pulled into an argument, and that could be, you know, whatever. And you don't want to go there. You know it's not good, but you're pulling each other into, you know, an argument that's not healthy. You know, I try to walk away, just walk away, and let both parties cool down. You know, just take a walk. You know, if you live in a neighborhood, you more than likely have a sidewalk. Just take a walk. Just get away. You know, there's many podcasts out there, like this one or many others. I mentioned Disney World as well. There's podcasts, you know, where people just walk around the park and you just hear the environment. You hear music playing. You hear kids laughing. You hear, you know, adults just having a super awesome time.
Mm-hmm.
So just to step out and, you know, hear that in the background definitely is something, you know, I think helps, you know, calm us down. I think as I've gotten older, there's a lot less of that, you know, that I have to deal with in my life. But I do know in the past, there's been certain times where, you know, have just gotten angry with, and it's not even, you know, particularly like my spouse. It's just with other people, you know, and you just have to know when to turn it off and when to walk away, you know. And typically when you walk away, the other party involved, you know, is kind of walking away as well. And they have time to think, and then when you come back, you know, you can kind of talk things out if necessary, or, you know. So I think that's something else that helps as well, is just knowing when to walk away. You have to have, you know, trigger points that let you become aware of what's going on. It's not just trigger points that set you off. You know, things can set you off and be angry. You can also, you know, subliminally and in your subconscious build trigger points that make you aware of when those things are happening and when you're getting pulled in. And when you are, go to those happy places or just walk away. And I think you'll have a much healthier lifestyle by doing that. I know that's definitely been, you know, really helpful in my life. Because like I said, you know, I've lived a pretty aggressive life, and, you know, there's a lot of things that set me off. And I've had to deal with that in the past. And so, you know, those are some of the ways that I've dealt with it. So.
Sure. Yeah, and you were saying something too, just like when it comes to like a fight that happens either between you and your spouse, or maybe it's you know, someone you work with, or it's just like a colleague of yours in some capacity. I mean, it happens all the time. But you reminded me of this. I wanted to share this with you. This is an exercise I did that like performed what I consider a miracle in my life. But there was a situation. There was a situation where someone I work with. I mean, I don't know what it was, man. But like things got really bad between us. I don't even know what I did, but just like out of the blue, I get a message from this person, you know, even like, you know, threatening like lawsuits and all this kind of stuff. I mean, just completely, you know, catching me off guard. I'm like, what did I even like do? You know, I mean, it was that kind of level, and they kept pushing and pushing it, you know, and that, you know, is a way of, I guess, defending myself. You know, it's like I became angry and like was, you know, pushing and resisting against the situation to feel like, you know, this person can't do this to me, or whatever. And then I don't know. So I remembered this. There's this meditation that I found a while ago, led by a guy named Vishen Lakhiani of Omvana. He created this Omvana app. You can actually find it for free in the App Store, or I think it's in Google Play as well. So you can check it out for yourself. But there's one part of this meditation that he guides you through, and it's is removing negative charges, right? So I'm telling you, there's nothing short of a miracle what happened with this particular situation. But the person I was having this, I guess this quarrel with, or whatever you want to call it. I can't believe I just used the word quarrel like in an actual sentence, but I was quarreling with this human. and I went through this part of this meditation, and I did this I really engaged in it for like several days, just every day until it was resolved. I said I was going to do this. But the exercise is as you put yourself in like a calm state, focusing on your breathing, allowing yourself to kind of like sink into like a really relaxed physical state as well as mental state. And what I did is I imagined this person standing, like actually in the room. I just pictured every aspect about them that I can remember, just like standing in the room, like 6 feet in front of me. And like, imagine like them being there and like with their personality and everything. And then what I did is I would say to that person, like to this kind of vision I had in my mind, and again, I'm trying to make it as real as possible, but I would say, like, from my heart, like, I forgive you, and genuinely mean it, and let it go, and just like, I forgive you, and then, so that's part of it, and it's very hard at first, but like, I would allow myself to do it. I would just say, I forgive you, and then, probably the more difficult part is to say, and I ask that you forgive me. Right, because it's like any kind of negative charge we hold against somebody is kind of like, can be seen as a negative charge against ourselves, because in a subtle way we're connected to all people. We all like come from like the same source, right? And like, God lives inside me, He lives inside you, He lives inside this person that I'm talking about, and I really try to recognize that. So when I ask for their forgiveness, I truly like imagine this person like granting that to me, and I almost like picture that forgiveness is like coming to me, like it is almost like a blue light or something like that. I don't know. That's just kind of how it makes sense in my mind. But like I see it and I physically feel it and like bring it into my chest there, and I accept it as well. And then I like in this kind of mental vision like shake their hand and even give them like a genuine hug, as like being forgiven. And I swear to you, 3 days after doing this, it was like nothing ever happened. Like there was no threats, like everything was solved. I didn't even have to say anything to this person. Everything was great. I would see them, regularly after that, and it was very friendly conversations. They even asked my opinion and advice about some issue they were having, and I was giving it, and they appreciated it. And I don't even know what happened, but even going through that exercise consistently brought so much peace to me, made it easier for me to sleep, and I was able to know it was taken care of. So I just that's something I do and try to do consistently when I find that I'm like in a fight or whatever with some people.
That is really interesting, Shane, because as you're talking through that, we try to go into these podcasts knowing everything, because we want to talk about everything, asking each other questions. So we kind of have, I guess, in our head a slated answer to each other. But now that you've brought that up, I actually do something similar.
Okay.
I basically do it in the mirror. I don't know if you said you did it in front of the mirror or not, but
No.
I actually do this in my bathroom in front of the mirror. If I've had a fight with someone at work, and I say fight, I hope you guys understand I'm not talking about fist fight or anything, but basically just an argument or something like that.
Quarrel.
A quarrel, as Shane would say. Nothing physical and nothing intense. I mean, nothing where we wouldn't be getting along. You know what I'm saying? But it's just one of those things where I'm right, you're wrong, kind of thing. And, sometimes, it's kind of hard to get over those kind of things. And you tend to become angry with with yourself because you didn't win the argument, or you didn't think of the right things to convince, the individual that you were going back and forth with that, you knew what you were talking about. So it's not really you're angry at them. It's, you're kind of angry at yourself, but then you have to kind of self-reflect. And I kind of do something similar to Shane, but I do it in front of the mirror. And I tell myself, I talk to myself, and I also talk to the other individual. I don't go as far as, shaking hands and, going through the whole forgiveness routine. Maybe I should, now that we've talked this through, maybe I could try that and see how that works. But I find that when I do that, all these bundled up emotions that I have and all these bundled up things that make me feel dirty inside, that is really what I'm angry at, because I don't want those things to internalize. I talk them out, and they're out in the open, and they're no longer internal, and then I can move past that. And within 10 or 15 minutes, I don't even remember it anymore. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of funny because, my wife will be in the bedroom and she's like, "Are you in there talking to yourself?" It's so anyway, so honey, if you're listening to this, now you know those voices from the bathroom when I'm talking. But anyway, yeah, it's super awesome. I mean, what we're touching on is just the power of the subconscious mind. That's becoming more and more of a theme, as we go through these podcasts and talk a lot of stuff out, is, the subconscious mind, and the way that the subconscious mind, when trained properly, can be an extremely powerful tool over our lives, an extremely
Absolutely.
powerful tool of getting us where we see we should be.
What's funny is the opposite is also true.
That is right. The opposite is also true.
Yeah, it's and we'll talk about that in more detail, like the things that we learn about, how the mind works. And studies have been shown, like in the past few decades, is like people study like human performance and human potential, particularly in the areas of the mind. That what they see is like your subconscious mind makes up anywhere from like in its actions, right, make up anywhere from like 93 to like 97% of our behavior, in the subconscious, or in the conscious mind, takes up the rest. So it's really amazing how, learning about these two aspects of our mind, it's not two different minds, right? It's just two parts of the same thing. It's interesting how they work together, and how one influences the other, and how you start to learn, like, how can I train the subconscious mind to work for me? How can I take a look at these programs that have been like installed in me since I was a child through my environment and my my authority figures and events that have happened in my life and had a big impact? How can I like analyze that, figure out what is it internally that like is helping me in moving towards what I am consciously desiring, and what are the things in there that I might consciously desire one thing, but my beliefs and like the things that are deepest in me are not congruent with that. So we're going to talk about that a lot more in depth. But when it comes to kind of going back to anger and the topic, I start. One of the things I try to see is anger is just an emotion. And what's an emotion? Emotions and feelings. The way I understand it to be, they're just tools that give you indications of how you actually are doing, like where your mind is at. It's I don't think emotions are good or bad, right? I think they just are, right? It's like pain. Like if I were to fall off of a bike and break my arm, right? Pain is not a bad thing. What pain is, pain is a good thing, because it's telling my brain there is a serious issue with your arm and you need to get it taken care of. Don't hold things with it. Don't flail it around. Keep it still, because there's something seriously wrong. Same way, like the sense of pleasure tells us something is right in a way. So anger is just an emotion that's telling us something about the situation. So it's important to understand that, again, anger is just an emotion. it's being caused by something, and you, as the master of your life, as the owner of your mind, can learn what that is and take a step back, and you can ask yourself, why am I feeling angry? What is making me react to this situation or this person in this way? And what can I do to reverse that? Like, how can I look at this situation differently?
That's a very good point, Shane. We're not saying anger in itself as an emotion is a bad thing. There's a reason why anger happens.
Exactly.
It's don't let anger consume you, right? It's obviously telling you something. It's obviously throwing up a red flag. You should definitely listen to that, but don't internalize it. Don't let it consume you, and don't let it become you. And then all your other emotions completely get out of whack, and then
Absolutely.
You're doing something that you shouldn't, because you've allowed it to consume you. So yeah, very very good point that you made there, Shane.
And I think that applies to every emotion. I don't think we should be mastered by any emotion, even like even the good ones. I mean, they should always serve us and give us indications as to like what's our current state, and if our state is not where we want to be, what can we do to adjust that and start moving towards what our goals and desires are. So yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting topic. There's so much more that can be said about anger and ways of dealing with it, but hopefully you guys have heard with some of the things that we do, some techniques that might help your lives, help you deal with anger more.
So maybe let's maybe we'll try something new, Shane. Maybe at the tail end of the podcast, which we're 4 minutes till 30 minutes. So maybe we'll do a recap.
Yeah,
so
that's a good idea.
So recap: when get angry. When I get angry, you should go to your happy place. What's the next one, Shane?
Go to your happy place if it's a situation such as traffic that you're finding yourself pissed off in, or it's a situation that it's predictable. You just know that hey, when I go to put my kids to bed, I typically get angry because they go to sleep. Knowing that beforehand, have a plan with what you're going to do to change your mentality before you even get there.
Right. So have a plan. So number 3 would be don't internalize it, or walk away. Right. Number 4.
Forgiveness. If you have an issue with people and a human being is making you angry, allow yourself to forgive them. And ask at the same time, I think it's just as important, ask internally for their forgiveness in return. Not just ask for it, but receive it. Imagine they've actually given it back to you.
Right, and I think one thing that you guys probably caught on to, but we didn't explicitly say this, is when we talked about that and we said don't internalize it, I don't know for you, Shane, but for me, I meant don't internalize it. I meant say it out loud, get it out in the open. Mm-hmm. Not with the other person you may be fighting with or whatever it may be, but go find a quiet place. That's why I use my bathroom and say it out loud, talk out loud. So when I said don't internalize it, I meant don't internalize it. Get it out, and then once you get it out, it's not trapped in your head anymore. And then number 5, was there a 5th one, Shane?
It was just kind of realizing that anger is just an emotion that's
right.
just pointing to something else. Yeah. So realize you don't have to be mastered by your emotions. You can listen to these signals that your mind and that your body are giving off to you, and realize what's the deeper root cause of how I'm feeling right now, and what can I do to rectify the situation, or like Brad was saying, kind of going full circle, how can I adjust my thoughts to be on things that are happy and that make me excited and fill me with life and love.
Number 5 is the anger emotion is purposeful, right? So don't let it consume us. Don't let it consume you. It is something you should recognize, but you should be able to act on it without letting your emotion control how you act on it. You should understand why you're getting angry, and then back off of it, understand it, and then resolve it in kind of some of these ways that we've talked about. So
absolutely, we want to hear about how you deal with anger. I mean, these are just 5 little tips, things that have worked in our lives, but there's more. So we want to hear what you do and how you how you deal with emotions like that, especially when can be considered negative. So, but we thank you for your time. We hope you enjoyed it. I think this went really well.
I think so. Looking forward to everybody's feedback, and Shane and I will work on our next topic, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
All right, thanks for listening.
Have a good one.